You are at the gym right now. You are running on a treadmill, staring at a digital screen tracking your heart rate. You lift a few kilograms of iron, drink your perfectly measured protein shake, look in the mirror, and take a picture to feel powerful. At the end of the day, you go to the brightly lit supermarket, buy a piece of plastic-wrapped meat that someone else killed, and return to your climate-controlled, heavily secured apartment. You lock the door, lie down on a soft mattress, and you fall asleep believing that you are at the absolute top of the food chain. You feel like the apex predator of planet Earth. But let's strip away the concrete, the electricity, and the smartphones. Let's go back 15,000 years into the brutal heart of the Pleistocene epoch. There was no plastic, there were no hospitals, there was no backup plan, there was only you, the freezing wind cutting through the landscape, and monsters. You are standing in the shadow of a creature that weighs 6 tons. It stands 14 feet tall. It has tusks 3 meters long, curved like Grim Reaper's scythes, and skin as thick as military armor, covered in a dense layer of coarse fur. The ground literally vibrates when it takes a step. The smell of raw muscle and wet earth fills your lungs. This is the woolly mammoth, a creature that could crush your ribcage the way you casually crush an insect under your shoe. For a very long time, Hollywood, cartoons, and pop culture have sold us a pathetic, comical lie. They gave us the image of the muscular, grunting caveman running blindly toward a massive beast, pulling his arm back, and throwing a wooden spear to bring it down. This image isn't just a historical inaccuracy. It is absolute biological stupidity. Imagine standing in the middle of a highway, waiting for an armored bank truck rushing toward you at 40 kilometers per hour, and trying to stop it by throwing a wooden toothpick at the windshield. That is exactly what it means to throw a spear by hand at a charging mammoth. The physical strength of your arm, no matter how much you train, no matter how much adrenaline is pumping through your veins, is completely mathematically insignificant against the mass of that animal. It is not enough to pierce through layers of matted fur, 3 inches of thick hide, and a massive wall of muscle and bone. If you throw your spear, it will simply bounce off. And in doing so, you haven't just disarmed yourself of your only weapon. You have successfully announced your exact location to a highly intelligent, easily enraged, 6-ton monster that will immediately charge and trample your body until you are indistinguishable from the mud. So, how did our ancestors survive? How could a naked, fragile, 70-kilogram creature without claws, without venom, and without fangs manage to wipe the terrifying titans of the Ice Age off the face of the Earth? The answer will change how you look at yourself and your own brain forever. The answer is that our ancestors didn't try to out-muscle the mammoth. They out-thought it. They weaponized the laws of physics tens of thousands of years before Isaac Newton was even born to write them down. To understand the terrifying genius of how this battle actually took place, you have to enter the mind of a Stone Age hunter. He doesn't know how to read. He doesn't know how to write. He has never seen a math equation. But his subconscious mind, that biological supercomputer resting inside his skull, was analyzing data on motion, mass, velocity, and momentum with a precision that would rival modern ballistic software. These ancient hunters realized a very simple, deadly truth. You cannot stop a moving mountain with your bare hands. But what if you manipulated the mountain into destroying itself? When archaeologists discovered ancient, perfectly preserved spearheads known today as Clovis points, they noticed something incredibly strange about their design. These stone points were not balanced or shaped to be thrown through the air. They were designed to be planted into the earth. These weapons were not primitive rocks tied to sticks. Creating a Clovis point required a level of craftsmanship that modern humans struggle to replicate. It took years of apprenticeship to learn how to strike a piece of flint with a deer antler at the exact perfect angle to flake off pieces of stone, creating an edge that was literally sharper than a modern surgical scalpel. This wasn't a primitive tool. This was Stone Age aerospace engineering. Now, imagine the scene of the hunt. A herd of mammoths is moving across the tundra. The human tribe does not attack the entire herd. That is suicide. Mammoths are highly social and highly protective. Instead, the hunters use the oldest military tactic in human history: isolation. They work as a silent, synchronized unit. They make calculated, terrifying noises. They wave burning branches. They create a funnel of fear, carefully manipulating the herd's movement until they force a single mammoth, perhaps a young bull, or an aggressive male to separate from the safety of the group. Here is where the psychological warfare begins. Here begins the fraction of a second that separates life and extinction. The isolated, angry mammoth turns around. It sees the hunter standing alone in the open plain. The beast lowers its massive head, lets out a deafening roar that rattles the air inside the hunter's lungs, and begins to charge. 6 tons of pure, unadulterated rage thundering toward him. The ground shakes violently. At this exact moment, every single primal instinct in the human brain is screaming a single command: run. The amygdala is flooding the nervous system with cortisol and adrenaline. The body is begging to flee. Any other animal on Earth would turn its back and sprint for its life, but the hunter does not run. This is the exact moment true human bravery was born. Not the absence of fear, but the supreme cognitive override of fear. The prefrontal cortex of the human brain takes control, silencing the panic. The hunter plants his feet firmly into the dirt. He grips his long, incredibly sturdy spear braced with both hands. Instead of raising it to his shoulder to throw, he drops to one knee. He buries the thick bottom end of the spear deep into the solid earth, and he points the razor-sharp tip upward at a very specific, calculated angle, aiming directly toward the soft tissue of the charging mammoth's chest or neck. The hunter does not stab the beast. He simply holds the line. The mammoth stabs itself. When the massive animal collides with the tip of the spear, the kinetic force driving the weapon through its thick skin, breaking its massive ribs, and tearing through its vital internal organs is not the strength of a human arm. It is the strength of the mammoth itself. The weapon uses the animal's own 6-ton weight, multiplied by its massive charging velocity. The impact is equivalent to a car crashing into a concrete wall at highway speeds. But the wall, in this case, is a razor-sharp stone blade, anchored by the unyielding nerve of a human being. But the genius of this trap doesn't end with the impact, because these Clovis points were not smooth. The true horror of this weapon lies in its engineered fragility. Due to the specific geometric design of the stone point and the massive compressive force of the collision, the stone blade was designed to break. It would shatter inside the beast's body into hundreds of razor-sharp fragments. The wooden shaft would snap, leaving the stone embedded deep inside. Every single movement the mammoth made after that initial strike, every breath it took, every attempt to run, every twist of its massive torso caused these internal stone fragments to violently shred its blood vessels, lungs, and organs from the inside out. The hunters weren't just fighting a monster. They were planting a biological time bomb inside its chest. But even with its insides torn apart, a creature of this size does not die immediately. The mammoth is in shock. It turns and flees, bleeding heavily, its massive heart pumping aggressively. This is where the second, most terrifying human weapon comes into play. The weapon that made humans the absolute worst nightmare of every animal on this planet. Sweat. Yes, sweat. You see, most animals on Earth, especially massive mammals covered in fur, cannot cool their bodies efficiently. They have to pant to release heat. Furthermore, because they run on 4 legs, their breathing is physically tied to their running stride. They can only take 1 breath per stride. When they sprint, their internal temperature skyrockets. If they run for too long, their brain literally begins to boil. They are physically forced to stop and rest, or they will die of hypothermia. But humans are uniquely terrifying. Because we walk upright on 2 legs, our lungs are completely independent of our running stride. We can breathe whenever we want. And more importantly, we possess millions of sweat glands covering our hairless skin. We are, quite literally, a highly advanced liquid cooling system walking on 2 legs. As the wounded mammoth fled in panic, the hunters did not sprint after it. They didn't need to. They simply followed it. They jogged at a steady, rhythmic, relentless pace. They read the broken branches. They tracked the drops of blood on the grass. For hours, and sometimes for days, the psychological torture continued. The mammoth runs, its heart rate skyrocketing, its massive fur coat trapping its body heat. It finally stops under a tree, exhausted, panting heavily, trying to cool down and heal. And then, it hears the rustling of the grass. It looks back, and there they are. The exact same faces. The exact same steady footsteps. They are not panting. They are not stopping. They are simply walking toward it. The mammoth forces itself up and runs again in a blind panic. It bleeds more, it overheats more, it stops again. And again, the humans appear on the horizon, a slow, inevitable shadow of death. We did not hunt the apex predators of this world with blinding speed or crushing strength. We hunted them with exhaustion. We were the terminators of the ancient world. We simply never stopped coming until the prey's heart gave out, collapsing from a lethal combination of blood loss and severe heat stroke. This level of hunting wasn't just a desperate search for dinner. This was the defining leap in human cognitive evolution. To plant a spear in the ground and wait for a massive beast to destroy itself, your brain has to be capable of running complex future simulations. You have to understand cause and effect. You must possess the incredible ability to suppress your immediate, visceral animal fears, replacing them with delayed gratification and calculated logic. To track an animal for days requires an advanced level of empathy, the ability to put yourself in the mind of the prey, guessing where it will seek water, where it will try to hide. The human who stood his ground in front of the mammoth wasn't just a hungry, primitive man. He was the first tactical engineer, the first strategic general, and the most dangerous endurance athlete the world had ever seen. He turned physical vulnerability into the ultimate evolutionary weapon. And here is the reality check. You carry this exact same brain. You carry these exact same genes. The strange, tragic irony is that the magnificent brain that designed these formidable survival strategies, the brain that instinctively understood the laws of physics and endurance to conquer a brutal planet, still lives inside your head today. But it no longer hunts mammoths. It no longer plans complex multi-day operations to trap 6-ton prey in the freezing wilderness. Instead, it sits in a heavily cushioned chair. It spends the majority of its waking life endlessly scrolling in front of glowing rectangular screens. It uses its highly evolved threat detection algorithms to stress over office emails. It uses its incredible persistence-tracking focus to stalk strangers on social media. It constantly searches for cheap, artificial dopamine hits, desperately trying to survive in a stagnant, digital world it was never fundamentally created for. Your hardware is built for extreme survival, but your daily software is set to maximum comfort. And perhaps that is the exact reason why so many people today feel exhausted, anxious, depressed, or entirely lost. We feel like something is deeply wrong with us because our biology is screaming for a challenge that our modern environment refuses to provide. You are not weak. You are not broken. The truth is, your modern, comfortable life simply doesn't know how to wake up the monster that is sleeping inside you.